The addiction to always being available, the invisible prison of kindness. You learned, without realizing it, that being loved means always being available. From an early age, the weight of smiling through pain, answering even when it hurt, and being present even when your soul begged for time alone, was placed on your shoulders. And you complied. You became a shelter, a counselor, an emotional emergency room for those who never stayed to clean up the wreckage. You became a symbol of strength, but at your own expense. How many times was your presence demanded, as if it were a spiritual obligation? How many times did you say yes, when deep inside your spirit was pleading for a no? This pattern, which so many call love, is actually a prison carefully disguised as a virtue. This total accessibility became an anesthetic. The more you gave, the less you felt the growing emptiness inside. The fear of rejection took root, and you tried to fill it with forced acceptance. After all, if you're always available, no one will leave, right? Wrong. They leave anyway, and they take a piece of you each time they go. Because you weren't made to be anyone's emotional extension. You weren't anointed to be the solution to the entire world while your own soul withers. If you're trapped in the addiction to being needed, it's time to break this cycle. Because serving, yes, but erasing yourself, no. Loving, yes, but betraying yourself, no. The time has come to understand that true love doesn't demand your constant presence, but respects your silence. That true connection doesn't feed on your guilt, but on your truth. And that being always accessible doesn't make you generous. It makes you vulnerable to spiritual exhaustion. If you relate to this so far, breathe. Because now comes the turning point. And before we continue, if this message is resonating with you, if something is opening within your spirit, take this moment to subscribe to the channel, leave your like and comment below what this word is revealing to you. This way, this message can reach more people who also need this awakening. You're being called to a new way of existing, one where your presence is a gift, not an automatic right for everyone. Kindness remains in you, but now it will come with wisdom. Because your time is holy. Your heart is an altar, and not everyone is ready to step into the temple you're beginning to build within. Self-abandonment disguised as empathy. There's a pain no one sees, the silent draining of those who love too much without reciprocation. You learned to care so much for others that you forgot to care for yourself. And outwardly, it all looks like empathy. But inwardly, you know, it's self-abandonment. It's the heart offering itself in pieces, believing this is spirituality. It's saying, I understand, when in truth you just wanted to be understood. It's listening, comforting, supporting, while no one asks if you're tired too. Being accessible all the time is like opening doors that shouldn't always be wide open. It's allowing people to walk through the temple of your soul with dirty feet, leaving traces of guilt, confusion, and exhaustion. You call it empathy, but it's actually the fear of setting boundaries. You call it love, but it's actually an addiction to being needed. And little by little, your essence gets corrupted. Because those who love without preserving themselves destroy themselves in the process. You need to hear this with spiritual clarity. Loving others doesn't mean dying for them every day. That's not the gospel. That's emotional slavery disguised as sweetness. A good heart without boundaries becomes prey for wolves. Because some people don't want healing, they want consumption. And you weren't made to be consumed by anyone. You are an altar. You are sacred. And an altar doesn't open to just anyone at any time. It's time to close the door before you lose the roof. It's time to look inward and realize that empathy without wisdom is spiritual sabotage. Your soul is crying out for space, for air, for retreat. And that's not selfishness, it's spiritual intelligence. Empathy that doesn't know how to set limits gets contaminated. It turns into resentment, exhaustion, and weariness of your own kindness. Today, the heavens are saying, stop confusing love with constant sacrifice. Stop thinking that being good means always giving. You can keep loving, yes, but now with awareness, with roots grounded in yourself. Because the next step in your spiritual journey requires you to learn to say, this is as far as I can go. From here on, it's between you and God. The no as a prayer, the spiritual power of denying. Access. Saying no always felt like a sin to you, as if refusing meant hurting, disappointing, abandoning. But today, you need to hear this as a revelation. No can be a form of prayer, an altar of discernment, a sacred shield that protects what's most precious in you. How many times have you opened doors that God was trying to close? How many times did your fear of disappointing speak louder than your intuition? No is a portal. It separates what nourishes from what drains. It consecrates time, energy, and the sacred within you. Every time you say yes out of anxiety, guilt, or a desire to please, your soul contracts. Something inside you shrinks. But when you honor the no that comes from your essence, the heavens align with your integrity. Because no isn't rejection. It's protection. It's not a lack of love, it's wisdom. You weren't called to answer everyone. Even the Creator doesn't respond to prayers that don't come from the heart. Why should you respond to every call? Learn this. Access to your heart is a privilege, not a right. Some people only understand the value of your presence when faced with your absence. And that no you've been avoiding might be the beginning of their transformation and your liberation. Saying no is also a way of saying yes. Yes to your peace, your focus, your emotional health, your calling. It's a yes to what honors you. It's a yes to what makes you grow. No needs to stop being a burden and become a throne, a place of governance over your own life, an act of self-love. And if you feel guilty for saying no today, listen with your spirit. That guilt doesn't come from God. It comes from the old system that taught you that being good means being always accessible. But now it's time to break that belief. You weren't made to carry the world. You were made to carry purpose, and purpose requires focus. It requires yes, but it also requires many no's. The silence that reveals who's who. Silence has its own language, and only the spiritually awake can hear it. While the world chases explanations, justifications, and quick answers, silence offers something greater, discernment. Because it's in silence that you begin to see who's truly with you and who was only with the accessible version of you. Have you noticed? When you step back a little, many disappear entirely. When you stop explaining yourself, some lose all interest. When you go silent, the surface cracks and the truth emerges. Silence is like a spiritual mirror. It reflects hearts. In it, there are no masks. In it, intentions are laid bare. In it, emotional vampires get confused because they no longer know where to feed. The truth is simple but harsh. Many approached you not because they loved your soul, but because they benefited from your sound, from your answers, your attention, your care. You became an emotional sustenance, but now the manna has ceased. Now is the time for retreat, to make your absence a presence stronger than any spoken word. Those who stay even without explanations are aligned with your essence. Those who approach without demands respect the timing of your soul, and those who complain, demand, or get upset with your absence never truly wanted you. They wanted your function, your role, your utility. Silence reveals what words hide. It separates those who love you from those who consume you. You don't need to justify yourself anymore. The heavens are saying, those who need your explanation don't deserve your heart. Your soul is entering a new season where silence will be your first spiritual filter. Because noise deceives, but silence exposes. It doesn't repel the true ones. It only drives away the false. Those who love you will listen even to your silence. Those who don't will be offended by your absence, so stay silent when necessary, stay inaccessible when needed, because in that place of quiet you'll realize what's real remains. What was mere interest evaporates, and you, at last, find peace. The anger of those who can no longer use you. The moment you stop being predictable is the moment many reveal their true faces. When you stop responding instantly, when you start taking your time, when you finally say no, something strange happens. Others' disappointment turns into anger. But this anger, pay attention, isn't about you. It's about what you stopped offering. It's about the access that was cut off. It's about the control that ended. You were so useful, so constant, so available, that many came to believe they had a right to you, as if your soul were a 24-hour service, as if your attention were an obligation. But now you've broken the pattern. Now you've stopped following the script, and those who were used to feeding off you panic when the source runs dry. The truth is harsh. Those who loved you for what you gave didn't love you. They used you. And what comes after use, when there's no more utility? Frustration, passive aggression, emotional blackmail disguised as disappointment, comments like, "You've changed," or "You're not the same anymore." And you need to discern this spiritually. They're not hurt because you did something wrong. They're irritated because they lost access to something that was never theirs by right. Don't get confused. Don't go back just because someone didn't understand your boundaries. Don't reopen the door God told you to close just because someone's knocking hard. The new cycle of your life demands firmness. It demands that you endure the pain of not being understood and still remain faithful to yourself. Because that's when your soul begins to align with the heavens. That's when you stop being shaped by others' reactions and start being guided by inner truth. Those who truly love you will adapt to your new version. They'll learn to respect you. They'll discover that you're not an infinite source. You're a temple. And a temple has hours, space, and respect. Their anger isn't your problem. Your focus now is to honor your peace, because your soul is no longer for sale. It's been restored. And that bothers those who profited from your exhaustion. The spirituality of unpredictability. You were conditioned to be predictable, always kind, always ready, always the same. But what seems like a virtue is often a prison, because emotional predictability hands over the keys to your inner temple. And those who know exactly how you'll react learn to manipulate you. Predictability, when it doesn't come from maturity, becomes a spell. You become a hostage to others' scripts. And believe it, some people build their entire security on the control they have over you. But now, the Spirit calls you to be unpredictable, not in the sense of instability, but of freedom, because a free soul doesn't bend to what's expected of it, but to what the Spirit demands of it. Being spiritually unpredictable is an act of sovereignty. You stop responding as always, stop acting as before, stop molding yourself to others' expectations. The cycle breaks, the spell is undone, the stagnant energy dissipates, because the unpredictable disarms the manipulator. And yes, this will scare some people. It will drive away those who fed on your emotional repetition, but it will attract those aligned with your essence, because those who loved you for control will get lost, but those who love you for your soul will flourish with you. Being unpredictable is protecting what's purest in you. It's stepping off the radar of chaos. It's becoming a sacred enigma where only those God allows can enter. True spirituality isn't a logical sequence of behaviors. It's flow, it's breath, it's movement. You're no longer here to fit into expectations. You're here to expand in truth. And your truth will no longer be tamed to fit the molds of others' emotional convenience. Now, those who want to walk with you will have to deal with the fact that you've changed, that you no longer react the same way, that you've learned to protect yourself with silence, boundaries, and the art of not being where your peace doesn't flourish. This is the spirituality of unpredictability, the divine dance between the hidden and the revealed, where you only show up when it's time, only speak when there's purpose, only respond when there's truth. And in this, you become untamable, because those guided by the Spirit no longer follow the scripts of pain. You don't need to be understood, you need to be whole. One of the greatest sources of spiritual exhaustion is the obsession with being understood. You spend words, time, and energy trying to translate what only your heart knows. You explain, justify, correct, retell, all to try to fit your depth into the shallow minds of those who were never willing to truly listen. But today, the heavens call you to a liberation. Being whole is more important than being understood. You need to accept, with spiritual courage, that there will be people who distort your intentions, who don't understand your silences, who judge you without even asking how you're doing. And that's okay. That doesn't define who you are. The search for validation is a subtle prison. It makes you calibrate your truth to avoid discomfort. It makes you hide your pain to not seem weak. It makes you smile while bleeding, all to maintain connections that don't nourish you. But there's healing in renunciation. When you finally accept being misunderstood, if it means staying whole, a relief washes over your soul. A gentle silence settles in, because you stop fighting to convince. You surrender the battle and reclaim your essence. And in that retreat, healing begins. The silent reconstruction, the alignment with the heavens. Not every soul is ready for your depth. Not every mind can access the place your truth comes from, and that's not arrogance, it's spiritual reality. You were made for something greater, and that will often be incomprehensible to the natural eye. But your mission isn't to be accepted, it's to be authentic. Your mission isn't to fit, it's to overflow. And for that, you'll need to accept that not everyone will applaud you in the process. Today, God invites you to set explanations aside and embrace integrity, to stand whole, even if alone, to move forward, even without applause, to stay faithful to what you know is true, even if others say you've changed. Because yes, you've changed, you've evolved, and that's perfectly okay. The time has come to stop begging to be understood. Now you walk with wholeness, and those who want to walk with you will have to learn to respect you without needing to translate you. Energy as spiritual currency. You are not free. The time has come to understand your energy is sacred, and the sacred isn't thrown around carelessly. The sacred is reserved, honored, offered with discernment. Every word you speak, every moment of your presence, every act of listening, every care you give, all of it has a spiritual cost. And if you've been feeling exhausted, drained, empty, it might be because you're giving out gold in plastic bags, handing out diamonds to those who only wanted trinkets, pouring yourself out where there's no honor. There's a spiritual economy at work, invisible but real. Everything you give of yourself is being accounted for in the spiritual realm. And when you give beyond measure, beyond peace, something in you begins to wither. You start to fall ill in silence, because your soul knows when it's being exploited, even if your heart insists on calling it love. It takes courage to say, I am not free. And that's not arrogance, it's clarity. You're no longer available for every invitation, every message, every random outpouring that lands on your soul as if it were an open field. No, you are consecrated ground, soil too fertile to be trampled without permission. And those who want access to what you carry will need to come with reverence, not haste. Everything precious is guarded. Gold isn't left exposed. Anointing isn't poured out carelessly. Divine presence doesn't dwell where there's no reverence, and the same goes for you. Your spirituality matures when you realize that your time, your peace, and your energy are the currencies of your altar, and you decide with firmness where, when, and with whom they will be spent. So hear this as a decree. You weren't called to be easily accessible. You are healing. You are a voice. You are a presence that transforms, and that requires boundaries. From now on, you won't be available for what makes you sick. You only give where there's honor, because you've understood you are not free. You are sacred. The new version. Inaccessible to the world, available to the sacred. Something has changed, and it wasn't by chance. You felt deep inside that you could no longer keep being what you always were, an immediate answer, a constant solution, a guaranteed companion. There was something wrong with that rhythm, a disconnection between your giving and your peace. So, in silence, something was born, a new version of you, more aligned, more serene, more inaccessible, but deeply available to what is sacred. This new version isn't online all the time anymore. It doesn't rush to answer every notification. It doesn't trip over itself to please. It doesn't justify itself to those who don't respect it. Because it understood living for others' expectations is dying a little every day. Now, it lives for what brings meaning, for what carries divine presence, for what sustains the soul. You haven't become cold, you've become selective. You haven't become arrogant, you've become protected. Because accessibility without criteria is spiritual exposure. And there are things the Spirit only reveals in silence, in retreat, in sacred solitude. The new version of you learned that not every external urgency deserves an immediate response. Not every emotional demand is just. Not every invitation is an opportunity. Some are traps to steal your focus, energy, and purpose. Now, your inner house has locks, not to keep out the good, but to protect the sacred. You open the door when there's peace, not guilt. You extend your hand when there's reciprocity, not obligation. You only give where there's truth, not convenience. Because what God is building within you requires silence, space, and protection. And maybe some will drift away. Maybe they'll say you've changed. But you know, this change isn't distancing, it's consecration. You weren't made to be everywhere. You were made to be in the center of divine will. And those who want to walk with you now will have to wait for the right time, approach with respect, and recognize that they're dealing with someone who heard the call of the heavens to be inaccessible to the world, to be available to what is eternal. Conclusion. Inaccessibility is the new intimacy. You spent a lifetime believing that intimacy is built with constant presence, quick responses, and unrestricted giving. But now, the heavens reveal something deeper. True intimacy begins when you learn to protect your essence. Because what is intimate, what is sacred, what carries presence and truth, isn't accessible to just anyone. It's not noise, it's silence. It's not a crowd, it's selection. Your soul is no longer on clearance. What was once given in haste will now be offered with criteria. What was once exposed without filter will now be shared only with those mature enough to hold what you carry. Because you've understood, being hard to access isn't pride, it's divine protection. You've become a sanctuary, a place where presence is heavy, where words are rare, where time is precious. And those who want to enter will have to take off their shoes. That is, leave behind shallow intentions, emotional games, and cheap demands. Because now your soul demands reverence. You no longer allow your heart to be treated like an emergency counter. And if they ask why you disappeared, why you didn't respond, why you stayed silent, answer with spiritual firmness, I'm no longer as accessible as before, because now I'm whole. Intimacy isn't about the quantity of presence. It's about the depth of connection. And that depth only flourishes where there's truth, honor, and time. You no longer have time to feed what's shallow. Those who don't understand your new silence don't deserve your old noise. Those who are bothered by your absence never valued your presence. And those called to walk with you now will need to come differently. because the temple has been renovated, the energy has been purified, the altar has been restored, and the soul that once gave out of fear now protects itself out of love. So declare with faith and firmness, "From today, my inaccessibility will be my new level of intimacy with the sacred, and my presence, when given, will be a prophetic act, no longer an emotional routine. Let the world get used to it. Your soul now has a price, weight, and purpose, and it's no longer available to just anyone.